Atheist Nomads, episode 188, The Mormon Last Days with Mary Cole. In this week's episode, patrons get 3 extra stories, and in the interview get to find out about making up for lost time. Find out more at patreon.com/atheistnomads.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me as always is Wesley.
Hello, everybody.
And Lauren.
Hello.
Rocco. Stop.
There's Rocco Taco.
And we have joining us in studio here in Boise, local comic and ex-Mormon who we saw at the Atheist Comedy Experience here in Boise last week, Mary Cole.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Hooray.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, she's not bothered by the dogs, so that's a win. Because, man, they've been all over her.
Yeah. I have like 200 pounds more of dog at my house than this. So
I know. Between the two, we almost have a whole dog.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're also not afraid of a microphone, so that always helps.
No, yes. Yeah.
That is one great thing about comics when it comes to podcasts is they like microphones.
Unless they're acoustic comics.
Yeah, totally.
That was a
That's the
bad joke.
Or mimes.
Yeah.
It's just people who yell.
The comic.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mary's got a point.
Yeah.
I'm used to
Acoustic
holding
comics.
on to the mic.
Fine.
That's different. That the
Being
mic's
able
just
to
hovering
actually
there.
move around, and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, you can do whatever I want it to do. And here you're like, no. Just don't fixate on your breathing.
Yeah. Breathe to the side slightly. Don't laugh too hard.
Yeah, and last week we did talk about how with the comedy show, one thing that was awesome was there, total of 6 people that got up on the stage, only 2 were men and none were straight.
Woo!
So that was,
Yeah, it was
pretty awesome.
It was pretty cool. It was a great show.
Yeah, I really like the idea of taking it and spreading it out and making more of the Atheist Comedy Experience available to peeps who need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Traveling around with that would be a hit.
Yeah, it would.
But-
Yeah, it would. It would be awesome. Lots of hoo-haws.
Yeah.
I got
puppets
hoo-ha
with frilly lace.
jokes for days. So
Yes.
Nice.
And in this area, everybody loves to make fun of Mormons. So that's always a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, being an ex-Mormon comic, I do well here.
Yes.
Because if you aren't an ex-Mormon, you know an ex-Mormon
Or you have a
know
boss
of
who
the
is a Mormon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone's very familiar with the culture here.
Yeah.
The ex-Mormon stuff plays.
Well, actually, what's been kind of funny for me is I periodically forget that there are actually Mormons here. Not that there are ex-Mormons here, because there's tons of ex-Mormons here, but there are actually still practicing Mormons here.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, you kind of
So basically you can't get away from teenagers in like really cheap white shirts and thin black ties.
I haven't seen one of them in
Long time.
a couple months.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's like the second capital of Mormondom here. They don't really proselytize here very much.
It was like 30%. I'm from here. Like 30% of my high school was Mormon. Like that's a
Oh my
pretty good
goodness.
percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Every high school has an LDS seminary across the street,
Sure.
which you can take your free period to go learn about Jesus.
Which they have free periods here.
What is this free period bullshit?
It is a segment of 30 to 40 minutes that is usually a class that you have to choose of your own will. So if you have a job, you can leave early and go to a job, but it was put in place so that people could go to a seminary, which isn't school sanctified, but
And
Right.
also
Right.
not a real seminary, because that would be a graduate school, and this is for high school students.
Yeah, in my area they just call that lunch. I don't know.
We
This
got
is on
lunch
top
too.
of
I didn't get any
lunch.
credit for it. I did have to go to seminary.
no, if you got
So you
credit
just- I
for
just
it,
get
that would
any-
be awful.
I didn't get any credit for it. And
That'd be illegal.
no, it's not a real seminary like in the Catholic sense, but Mormons
But you
They're special.
march to the
get
beat
to
of our own
stay
drum.
at school longer? Why
No,
is that
it's
fun?
like because you only need so many credits to graduate. So the extra ones you can use to go. So if you're a Mormon, you cannot fail any classes because you've got that seminary. You're using your buffer up with seminary.
And
Yeah,
as far as
you
real
can't miss
seminaries,
seminary.
that's not just Catholic. That's basically everybody who's not Mormons.
Oh yeah,
have
like I said, we do
real
stuff
seminaries.
different.
I did a year at one, so yeah.
Just weird.
Which
okay.
threw me off because I always knew a seminary as that little church across the street from high schools that taught classes all day. So he's like, yeah, I went to seminary. I'm like, okay. A lot of people did.
Yeah, I was taking
except for you paid a lot of money for yours.
Level classes, and there was several master's programs available and a number of doctorates as well.
Huh.
In the Jesus learnings.
Yep.
Crazy.
You probably got some actual knowledge out of that, at least. I think in Mormon seminary, it's a little bit.
The main thing I learned is that, yes, my suspicions were right. Christianity is bullshit.
So
Yeah.
that worked
some
out.
actual knowledge is what I'm saying. You got some
Yeah.
actual knowledge.
Yeah.
Mormon seminary, you couldn't come away with that. You just like class is over and you're like, yes, I'm so right about everything.
Yes. Right and righteous.
I don't have to look into any other books besides these two.
Well, if you try to tell high school students to actually think about religion, not just what to believe, it's just not going to work. By the time you're doing graduate courses, you need to make sure that people are actually thinking, or else what the hell are they doing there?
Isn't that a little late to start asking people to learn how to think?
It definitely was for some of the feeder schools into that one. Fortunately, mine, they did want to make sure that we thought.
Critical thinking? Get a PhD!
You know, they wanted, in my undergraduate at Walla Walla, they did want to teach us critical thinking, and they just had the answers they wanted us to critically think towards. Didn't quite work out for all of us, but yeah.
And now you have an atheist podcast.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
worked out.
But let's go ahead and get into the dusting off the degree, which I am excited about because it's moving out of Adventism as much as possible into Mormonism. And we have a Mormon here with us who can hopefully fill in some of the gaps. Yes.
I'll do my
Ex-Mormon.
best.
Wait, I said Mormon?
It's been
I
a few
meant
years.
former Mormon.
Former
Yeah.
Mormon, ex-Mormon.
Mormon
Yes.
Latter-day
Mormon.
Saints.
So according to Mormons, the signs of the last days are the restoration of the gospel and preaching it throughout the world, modern scripture, something nobody else ever does, the restoring of the priesthood, temple worship, prophets, and apostles, all of which the LDS Church, by design, conveniently satisfies. They also think that the gathering of scattered Israel is a sign, but I doubt they meant the Zionist movement and establishment of the state of Israel with that. Would that be correct?
That's all. Yeah, that's bringing back a lot. That's been a
You're
lot.
like, oh crap, I did learn this
I did.
stuff.
Yeah, I was like, oh shoot, you're right, man. That's exactly what they teach. Yeah, all of that. Conveniently, the Mormon Church does fulfill all of that, but also conveniently doesn't have control over all of it, like the being able to preach in all countries.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, once the Mormon Church can have missionaries in every country, then like we're really getting close to the last days, which is something they can keep sort of feeding to people because there are still
it's the carrot
countries
on a
who won't.
stick.
Exactly, there's still countries who won't let us in. It's like one of those. Well, it's the world's bad that Christ can't come back, right?
So when communism fell, it was like, all right, we're one step
world.
closer. Now Islam needs to fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they do actually, like, the reestablishment of Jerusalem is actually a part of the second coming.
I've got that.
Oh, you got it.
down.
Oh, I don't want to get ahead of you then,
Yeah. So, yeah, and my source I'm going with is from the Mormon Encyclopedia off of the BYU website. So it's...
Well, more legit than Wikipedia, I guess.
legit source. The Wikipedia one was pretty cool, too. But so then...
That's where you get the crazy stuff that they don't want to publicly talk about.
The House of... But this is one of those where you don't... We're not concerned with how crazy is it. It's what do they believe, which is crazy in and of itself. So they believe that the house of Joseph will be gathered to the tops of the mountains in the Western Hemisphere. I'm assuming this means the Rockies, or more specifically Utah. But they just said the tops of the mountains of the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, it changes a lot.
Maybe Denver will be next.
There we go. Aspen. Convenient.
There will be mass wickedness, wars of unprecedented destruction. Parents and children will kill each other. There'll be increasing crime rates and the destruction of cities. Lightning and thunder and waves of the sea heaving beyond their bounds will cause more destruction. A hailstorm will destroy the crops and cause widespread famine. And these are all judgments, and they will end all nations.
God, I'm sorry, but that sounds really pathetic.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah.
thunder.
It's just like what it's what the generation who created those ideas saw for the next generation, and it's what the generation before ours is seeing for the next generation. It's everyone thinks the next generation is going to ruin the world, and Mormons just used it to take control over some people.
Now,
Yeah.
are the Mormon pantries in preparation for the hailstorm and famine?
It's a combination. If I want to say it's either 2 or 3 years. Are you talking about the personal ones?
2 or
or
3 year
yes,
pantry.
a 2 or 3 year food storage, and it's for in case the world ends tomorrow. But also they also say things like, you know, in case somebody loses their job, then you have 3 years of food. But it's a more of a doomsday.
For when they call you into the desert, you have food ready.
Yeah, you've got everything ready to go, and
yes, the hailstorm.
That was the thing that I've heard about that seemed the most comparable to the Adventist apocalyptic survival school that I did in high school, where you learn how to live off of the land while the government is hunting down all the good Christians. And it seemed like the Mormon equivalent was probably the pantries, but it was like, it means you have to be able to stay at home. If you have to flee, you can't take 3 years worth of food with you. So apparently they believe they're in Zion and everything will be fine.
I've known some hardcore Mormons in the Idaho Falls area that they knew how to pack that. It was, you know, somebody dropped the word and they could pack it all up into their huge trucks and mosey on out to the desert.
As my family did, we had go bags. We had, and they're not in like a crazy. It didn't seem crazy to me at the time, but like backpacks and food storage. And I think the idea was really once the dust sort of settles, then you go to Zion, and then you go. So you have like 3 years to live, and then once, you know, all the bad people are dead, then you'll travel to the place designated by the prophets.
This has always been kind of weird to me because I've always thought of the Southern Baptists more as the doomsday preppers or the go bag type, but you know, this is kind of shattering my thoughts here. This is weird.
Yeah, Mormons have their own little version of it. And
I mean, I knew about the pantries just vaguely, but this is odd.
If you know the apocalypse is coming, you're going to be a prepper of some kind.
Yeah.
And like we went to Survival Con sometime last year.
So scary.
And it had a very heavy Mormon feel to it.
Oh yeah, Mormon
very creepy
cookbooks on how to make
feel.
preserves, how to preserve food, lots of anti-government propaganda, and I could guarantee that everybody there was Mormon.
And I was looking into expedition vehicles a while ago too, and very quickly started getting into a whole lot of Mormons, because expedition vehicle, normal people. Then you start getting into a little bit more redneck, probably Baptist. And then there's this fine line between expedition vehicles, and then you start getting into bug out vehicles. And as soon as you get into bug out vehicles, it seems like it's half Mormon.
Yeah. Well, in this area, we're just talking about the...
No, I'm talking about on the internet.
Oh, on the internet.
On the internet, it seemed like the bug out vehicles was like half Mormon. The other half were like crazy Pentecostals.
I wonder how much that's changed. And I mean, I've been out of church for like almost a decade now. And so it's a really good chance it got more extreme. My parents were sort of like dabbled in food storage. Like they had like tuna, you know, they had like a bunch of tuna in the cupboard.
We're talking about the 5% of the crazies that are ready to like book it.
Well, that's the thing is that my family's all still Mormon, and they talk about these people who have swung really far right in the church, and they feel like the church isn't conservative enough and isn't preparing people for the end of days enough. And I think that's newer.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't, as far as I knew at least, wasn't around when I was in high school.
Mormon
it's become
this
a much more extreme.
The same thing I've seen with the Adventist church since I left of it. Well, even in my last couple of years in the church, it moving far right politically when it had always been left leaning.
Yeah.
And it's just...
See, I'm descended from Democrat Mormons, so everything within the past that I've seen over the past 10, 15 years has really kind of gone against the grain in my family on that side. Because they were okay with black people in the church, and they're okay with not having 3-year pantry, and they're okay with all that stuff. And it just seems to be getting more and more conservative as time goes on.
See, I was just going to talk about that, saying that, the churches just really went down since the Council of the 12 just let black people in there. It's like, oh, God. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move back into as the end draws nigh. The sun will be darkened, the moon turn to blood.
Dude, there's an eclipse coming up this year.
The stars will fall, and even rainbows will be taken away.
Oh, what?
What?
Jerks.
Now,
That's
either
like the most upsetting
the laws
thing.
of physics are going to change, or the sun darkening will mean no rainbows. Because you have to have the sun shining to have rainbows.
Clever.
And the timing of this is actually pretty interesting because Joseph Smith lived during the year without a winter when the sun was dark, the moon looked like blood, and there wouldn't have been any rainbows that entire year because the sun wasn't shining. The entire earth was enveloped in ash. He saw that in his lifetime.
I didn't know that. That's funny. It's like he's just pointing around at things that he saw and was like, that's a sign.
It was this will happen. The meteor shower. Oh man, that
it was the last time that a level 8 volcanic eruption happened.
Right. Okay.
We're just waiting for the next one.
An island in Indonesia disappeared. Literally, it blew its 80% of the island disappeared as it erupted.
It's a magician's trick gone terribly, terribly wrong.
It snowed in New York in July and August. It was what year was this?
Wow.
This is 1830s, I think.
Cool.
1820s, 1830s. So during Joseph Smith's lifetime, either when he was teens or early adulthood. So it all makes perfect sense. Brigham Young would have also lived through it, and so it makes sense that Mormons would describe it in that kind of detail.
Then probably did seem like the end of times.
Yeah. Then the 7 golden lamps. Apparently, there's 7 golden lamps in heaven. They will appear, and the heaven will then be silent for a half an hour, and the face of the Lord will be unveiled.
Are the 7 golden lamps tied to the menorah at all?
Why would they?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because 7 wicks, 7 lamps, oil lamps.
There might be 7 lamps in Revelation, or this might be a unique Mormon thing.
Or is this the and so sometimes I get my general Christian theology and the Mormon theology parts confused. So tell me if this is not general Christian theology. But what is the virgins and the lamps thing? Is that from the Bible or is that from the
There is a story of that in the Gospels.
Okay, and that is 7 of them. Correct? Because this is sounding vaguely familiar to me, and I'm trying to figure out how it ties in. It's been a long time since I studied.
I don't think the one in the Gospels enumerates the virgins, but it does talk about virgins waiting for the wedding.
Yeah, and I think there was 7, and sometimes that happens with Mormonism too. Is the Bible is vague, and then a prophet comes out and they're like, there was 7, and then so it kind of confuses everything. But I think that might be related.
Okay.
They take it and they hunker down and they're like, no, it's 7.
The righteous will suffer less than everybody else through all of this. They will gather in the 2 Zions, a New Jerusalem in the West, specifically in the Americas.
Specifically, probably in Utah or Denver, apparently.
It's in Missouri.
Missouri,
yeah. Yeah, that's where they believe the Garden of Eden was originally.
Missouri.
Okay.
Missouri. And I do believe that's where they plan to all go back to.
So they'll go to the mountains and then go to Missouri.
I guess.
Cross the plains.
Walk. Yeah, I don't know. I'm almost certain that's the case on that.
That's awesome.
They'll do a reverse Mormon trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll head back because that's where the original promised land was for the Mormons was Missouri. Okay. But then people were like, hey, we don't really like you trying to steal our daughters and whatnot. So kicked them out.
Yeah.
And so they went to Utah, but the plan is to go back to Missouri at some point.
So they
believe.
So they went from Zion to the tops of the mountains of the Western Hemisphere. Okay.
Yeah, they got forced out. I mean, the Missouri Mormon War. Yeah.
I do believe the plan is to go back to Missouri.
The other Zion will be the Old Jerusalem, actually in Israel. And Christ will rule over all of the earth from these 2 capitals for the millennium.
Yes.
Which the millennium we will talk about next time and is equally insane. Actually, no, more insane. This is just weird. The Mormon Millennium is so unique.
See, I don't know that because it's the only one I know about.
Let's take a break, and then we've got some news.
Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by Archway Hosting. Check out their low-price, full-featured hosting solutions at archwayhosting.com. That's ARCHWAY hosting.com.
Hey, we're also brought to you by listeners just like you. Find out how you can become a patron at patreon.com/atheist nomads. That's patreon.com/atheist nomads.
And Mary, thank you very much for helping clarify the Mormon pantries. Those have been bothering me for a while.
No problem. That's the thing I know most about. So
Pantry nightmares.
Pantry, yeah.
We have enough food to last us about a week.
Yeah.
Bad Mormons.
It was like when I left the church, I was like, oh, my parents were crazy people. And now, like, I'm getting older. My husband are like, do you think we should have food storage? Like, do you think, like, he's not Mormon, but we have like extra water and extra tuna. And I'm like, am I turning into them? I can now. I can. Yeah. But for the fun of it, not because God told me to. I guess that's the difference.
Just make sure that you put up one of the guides on how to survive the zombie apocalypse, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, because then it's cool. It's cultural. It's edgy.
Now it's millennial.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't it the CDC has a good guide on that?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure.
All right, we have news. A follow-up on a story from, I think, probably our first year of doing the podcast.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
All right.
So we talked about this story out of Canada where a 15-year-old died of complications from his untreated diabetes and starvation. He weighed in at only 37 pounds at the time of death.
Fuck me.
And this was all because the parents' religious belief did not allow for medical care. And after he died, they went to church and claimed that their son had died and God resurrected him. No, he was dead. He had died that day before they went to church. He had been in foster care at one point after getting taken, I think it was either by church members or family members to the hospital. But then he was placed back with his parents, who then moved from BC to Alberta. And then
Backcountry Alberta.
Yep, this kid slipped through the cracks. They took him out of school and registered him for homeschooling, which they never did. And there was no way of the public to keep any eye on him. And also, when they moved, they didn't really tell BC, hey, we're moving to Alberta. And they didn't tell Alberta, hey, you guys should probably be watching us.
They're criminals. Of course they wouldn't flag themselves.
They have now been convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 25 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. I think
there's some of that justice we were missing before.
The saddest part of that story is that when they said they took him out for a year, foster family had him and he thrived. Like, he did really well. And the second the family got him back, they were gone. And now now he's gone.
Yeah. Well, and that thriving would have been relative. It was relative thriving because damage had already been done.
Sure,
his organs would have not been functional.
But, go figure, if you take your medicine and eat, as you ought to, then you know what? You're probably going to do a little bit better than, just fucking olive oil and prayer.
Right. And literally the family had been trained on how to treat them. It wasn't an ignorance issue. It wasn't they didn't know. They knew. They'd gone through it with the doctors. Doctors told them what they needed to do. And instead, they put this kid in a diaper and let him starve to death in his bed.
Nice.
That's
murder.
That's murder.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's torture.
And the idea of believing in a God who would think that's what they wanted for your son, for your child, is just beyond me.
Yeah,
like the day-to-day God's a little crazy, but the let your kid starve to death in a diaper God is an especially bad one to believe in.
Yeah.
All right. So, they got, at least justice has been served in Canada. Now we're going to bring it closer to home, where the Idaho State Legislature is still examining options on ways to address the religious shield laws that allow children to die from untreated diabetes, pneumonia, infections.
So whatever you think that your God can pray away.
Yeah.
All right.
There have been at least 140 children from this tiny little church of about 150 in Canyon County that have died in the at least last 30 years from easily treatable things. And all of these were children. I've walked around their cemetery. There's a lot of women in their late teens, early 20s that are also dying because they aren't getting medical care. Yeah. Apparently, because you walk around and it looks like the century is wrong.
Yeah, it's like 200 years ago kind of thing. It's like, really? Died in childbirth? That's still a thing?
Uh-huh. You look at if it says 1903 and you have a 23-year-old woman and a 3-day-old baby buried together, that's not unusual. For 2003, that is a travesty. And yeah, and that's not even the part that that anybody's even trying to change. Not trying to mandate that adults have to get medical care, just that their children do. Not even trying to mandate that prenatal care happen, just that children that are actually born have to get medical care. And the state legislature is looking for options. They want several options.
And it's not even just healthcare, if I understand it correctly, in general either. It's not just healthcare for kids. It's like just the healthcare that keeps your kid from dying.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you have to get your kid vaccinated for this or that. It's not you have to take the kid to the doctor if they have a cold. It's you have to take the kid to the doctor if they have a fever of 110 and they're going to die in the next 24 hours. It's like the very last resort type. You have to go to the doctor.
If your kid might die, you have to go to the doctor.
If they have a life-threatening illness, you have to take them to the doctor. If they have diabetes that goes untreated for a few months, they will die. You have to take them to the doctor.
Yeah, well, it's a big battle between the sheriff of the town and the coroner. And coroner's seen these bodies come through and is perfectly
fine with it.
Oh, is the coroner the one
the Ada County coroner also gets to deal with a lot of these and wants the law changed because he's getting sick and tired of seeing dead babies.
So that's the coroner I read about.
The Canyon County coroner, who this article is
who was
about,
elected.
The Canyon County coroner wants to leave the law in place. The county sheriff disagrees because this is a double standard.
Yeah, but
the absolute worst thing, though, is what's likely to happen is that a really watered-down repeal of the Religious Shield laws will pass the legislature. There are 6 parts of the Idaho statutes that need to be changed to actually fix this, and they're probably only going to take out 1 or 2, which will mean when the Canyon County Sheriff actually tries to
enforce
something, he can't because there's conflicting laws. And that's probably what we're going to be getting.
And that's probably why it's been stuck in a hole for several years when it comes to the legislature.
Which is crazy because you think like babies not dying is something we can all get behind, right? Like little kids dying, you feel like you just say, okay, I have this issue because all these little kids are dying and everyone's going to suddenly be on your side. But you bring this religious aspect into it and suddenly it's like, well, I don't know if we're that concerned about the babies dying.
Well, babies dying or your religious freedom.
And it's like our side says babies are dying. This needs to stop. The other side just looks at religious freedom and parental rights. And you just bring up those 2 things and then, nope, they don't want the government getting involved in that. Bullshit.
Plus, they don't see it as babies dying. They see it as babies going back to God. And that twists it. It really does. It totally changes what's happening.
If a kid dies because his parents are strung out on meth and don't take him to the doctor, those parents are going to prison for manslaughter. If they're strung out on God and their kid dies, they're off scot-free. And not only that, but with this group, their ticket's punched for heaven and they're good to go. They can do no wrong.
Yeah, they're so justified in it.
They paid the ultimate sacrifice and they can get medical care themselves then because they've already done their part.
Yep.
Oh.
So
it comes up every year and it doesn't go anywhere and it's really frustrating. So people in Idaho write into your legislature?
This year is actually looking like the best for something to happen.
Oh, goodness.
again, it's probably not going to be what we actually need, which means it'll probably end up getting tied up in courts. They'll have to actually fix it again after that, but it's at least a start. And of course, Idaho is one of 6 states with the most generous of religious shield laws. So especially as Oregon and Washington have been cracking down, they're all coming here.
Sounds like a good enough reason to move, right? All the crazies are showing up.
Yeah. Oh, you mean to leave here?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then final news story I've got is from, it's about the World of Faith Fellowship in Spindale, North Carolina.
This is my favorite one.
Yes.
That you sent me.
Oh, man.
I'm really excited about this one.
This church takes controlling their members' sex lives to a whole new level. And for churches controlling their members' sex lives, there's a pretty high bar to actually take that to a new level. Members must get permission from the leader, Jane Whaley, and other ministers to start dating first. I think they have to get the permission to ask someone on a first date, even. They again need permission to get married. And after the wedding, before they go to sleep on their wedding night, they can have a
godly peck on the cheek,
yes.
I think was the phrasing.
Yeah.
Godly peck on the cheek.
Uh-huh.
So romance.
Yep.
So much romance.
They then later have to then ask for permission, a process that can take months or even up to a year to finally have sex.
They have to prove that it's for procreation only, or
no, that's separate.
That's the weirdest part.
Once they get the permission, they're given condoms. But up to a year after they're allowed to get married, they can finally start having sex.
That church is going to die out real fast.
They have to later ask for permission again to have children.
Oh, my gosh.
And any violators that get found out are punished, sometimes violently, and sometimes the couples are forced to separate.
I'm sorry, violently?
Violently punished.
Okay.
So somebody's getting the rocks off.
Got it on a month after you got married without permission. Oh, nope, you're going to get your ass kicked.
Wow.
Didn't wear a condom. All right, you're getting your ass kicked.
Yep. Prove that one.
And yet they willingly join this church.
Well, I mean, there's
People
levels
born
of
into
control
it.
in every church like that. And I mean, there's always people willing to submit to them.
And there's always people who aren't.
Yeah.
They get stuck there anyway.
Yeah, but what it is it's in my opinion, and that's what I like so much about this article, or what just got me about it, is it's a they're wanting a quantitative measurement of their own morality, you know?
Yeah.
And so if this group can give them that in such black and white terms, the more black and white, the more
morality on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. And that's easier, because it's so much easier to be like, I didn't fuck my wife without a condom, without permission, than it is to be like, I was kind to people today. Because condom's easy. Was the condom on? You did it. Check that box. Was I kind to people? How kind? To how many people? How was it? Is it just being kind-ish to some? Or do I have to be, that's harder to
quantify.
You can't check that off a list.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought was interesting about this, is that's why I think this is, and that's why people are drawn to it, is because even though it's hard, it's so easy to measure.
And people love to have religion be difficult.
Yeah.
Because then the people who actually do it are like super self-righteous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's like none of that up and down movement and growth. It's just check the box, move on, check the box, move on. And you don't feel like you've backstepped at all. You don't have to be introspective in a lot of ways. So I get why people do this, because this is what kept me in Mormonism until I was in my early 20s. Is it's a lot easier to check boxes.
Yeah. You look at the ancient Gnostics, you had two types, the ascetic Gnostics and the libertine Gnostics. The libertine Gnostics would have feasts and orgies, and the ascetic Gnostics would abstain from sex, routinely starve themselves, beat themselves. The libertines died out on their own. The ascetic Gnostics got hunted down, persecuted, and then eventually absorbed into the Catholic Church.
Yeah, so...
difficult sells. The Shakers, who are so famous for their furniture.
That's all they're famous for.
and not having sex.
Mm.
You joined that church, you would have to give them all of your property. If you were married, you'd have to renounce your marriage and then live celibate for the rest of your life. And people flocked to it. They then
People
died
like
out,
punishing
but
themselves.
they flocked to it.
I'm not. I'm self-gratifying.
No.
I'm like, of course, maybe the attention span has something to do with that. I don't have the attention span to really think about what I'm doing. I just go from one thing to another.
But even now, yeah, you look at it, and the churches where it's the easiest are doing the worst. And the more legalistic churches, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Adventists in particular, are the only ones that are growing. And because they are conservative, what you believe is very black and white. You must believe this to be part of the group, and you must do X and not do Y.
I was just trying to
It
think
makes life. It makes it the actions are easier. The choices might be easier. The choices might be harder, but living that way is so much easier because you're told what decisions to make, and then all you have to do is make them.
Mm-hmm.
You're not ever told or have to learn how to make good decisions. And that seems like those are kind of the same thing, but they're very different. Make these decisions easy. Even if they're hard decisions, it's still easy to do. Go out and make good decisions on your own. That's a lot more ambiguous, and that's harder to wrap your mind around for any human being.
Oh, yeah.
My family always, they're like, oh, Mary left the church because it was too hard. And I'm like, oh, it's way harder out here. Trust me. Like, come out and try it for a while. You have no idea. But, that's what it is. It's the decisions are harder, but I think overall it is easier to be told which ones to make.
Excellent point.
All right. Wesley, what do you got?
All right. So, Robert Davey calls for jailing reporters who spread lies about virtuous political candidates, well, like Trump. So, the first thing you should be thinking right now is, who the fuck is Robert Davey? Well, he's that actor from such well-known parts as Jake the Dumb Goon from Goonies. Remember the couple of brothers? And, yeah. He was also that guy that was so forgettable that he actually played two different parts in T.J. Hooker, the show that Shatner played a cop. So yeah, that guy. Speaking of at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC that's been going on.
The one with the Russian flags.
Yeah,
that's all I remember.
Trump flags.
The false flag operation.
That's awesome.
That's a good one.
So good.
Yeah.
So this guy called for the passage of laws that would jail reporters for spreading false information about, quote, our very best of our American heroes, like Trump again. Davey somehow claimed that in ancient Rome, anti-Coulommiers laws made it impossible to spread false rumors or lies against upstanding and virtuous political candidates. And, he wants them in America.
Yeah, what happened to Rome?
Yeah.
It collapsed.
So can you spread false stuff about like just sort of morally average people? Like, like
you didn't kick a dog today. Good for you. You pass.
Yeah.
So was all the false stuff being said about Hillary Clinton? Was that okay?
Yeah, well, sure. She's a Democrat and a woman.
She's not an upstanding, virtuous person. So I'm like, that just blows my mind that these people are so entrenched in the idea that the media is perpetrating all these lies. And it's just like, dudes, the facts are there.
An upstanding, virtuous person. Let's see, divorced 3 times, serial philanderer, walked in on the Miss Teen USA into the dressing room. He has
virtuously
raped
Come on,
people.
that's like a Tuesday.
He has defrauded people, basically defrauded everyone he's ever done business with. There is no way you can actually look at him and say virtuous.
No. And yet these people do. They are just, they have their blinders on.
Yeah.
The horse blinders.
They're like, grab him by the pussy thing. That was out of context. Like there's some sort of context
context that that's supposed to be.
Like, he walked into the Teen USA. Like, but that's stories out of no. There's no context in which any of those things are okay to do.
Yeah, no. So
he's an enigma,
Davies,
and his followers are enigma. Actually, he's really obvious.
Mhm.
It's his followers that I don't understand. I understand the whole give him a chance people, because they're like, yeah, he's kind of like not doing so good, but maybe he's going to get better.
And he's already in there. Sort of like he's in there, like...
So let's just see what happens. But then there's the people who are like, no, he's a virtuous, upstanding guy, and he's going to make our country better.
Well, yeah, that's all those Christians that, they see him putting in, right-wing Christians into some of these positions like DeVos and others, and they're happy because he must be a good Christian too. So Davey, yeah, his speech, he's going on saying that he wants more people, good, honest people like Pence and Trump running for Congress or Senate or the presidency, and, more of those fake reporters to go to prison.
Because locking away journalists is such a good idea.
Yeah.
Not like it's anti-democratic or anything.
Yeah, even George W. Bush is coming out in defense of the media.
Yeah. It's trickling out every day. It's kind of weird.
And they treated him like shit.
I know. You love that when you're like, George W.
Yeah.
You're killing it these days politically. Decade ago, you were.
I almost miss him.
I know.
Yeah,
right.
Remember when frickin' Romney was like the worst case scenario? Now I almost wish.
Remember when George W. Bush was like the guy that everybody wanted to have a beer with?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck.
All right, that's it for news. Let's go ahead and take a break, and then let's talk to Mary a bit more. We love hearing from our listeners. You can email us at contact@atheistnomads.com, tweet us @atheistnomads, send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/atheistnomads, or better yet, call us and leave us a message at 541-203-0666. We might even play it on the show. You can also help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcast directory of choice. All right, Mary, tell us a bit about your story.
So I was raised Mormon. I'm assuming that's what you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Hear that story. My parents are still really devout Mormon. I actually had, I would say, a relatively good, normal childhood. At least that's how I felt about it at the time. I think I definitely learned some damaging stuff and had some damaging stuff happen to me. But as far as, the first few years of my life went, everything was pretty happy and healthy. And I remember I ended up leaving the church when I was about 21, was when I finally really broke. I'd been kind of going to church off and on for a few months before that, but I always felt guilty about it. The thing that I would say, there's a couple of things that really broke me with Mormonism. The main one probably being the polygamy issue. When I was in 8th grade, in my 8th grade history class, I always knew polygamy was sort of a thing. Like there were some fringe people in Mormonism that participated in it. That was always sort of my understanding. And then in my 8th grade history class, again, I went to school in Boise, so I'd say about 35% of the people in any class were Mormon. We were learning about American history, and the pioneers and Mormonism came up, and we read about Brigham Young and Joseph Smith and all of their wives. And this is horrifying now, but I raised my hand and I corrected my history teacher. I was like, that never happened. When she explained about all the wives, and I was like, no, that never happened. And I think every other Mormon person in that class was behind me. They were like, yeah, she's right. That never happened. You were making that up. So I go home that night. Yeah, it's bad. So I go home that night and I'm like, Mom, you will never believe the lies they were telling in my history class. And my mom was like, basically she was like, oh, okay. So that's like technically true-ish, but you have to look at it in the context of there were way more women in the Mormon church because women are just more righteous and they needed protection.
The men kept dying in wars.
Exactly. And wars that she left out. Joseph Smith was sending them to fight. Like things like that kind of got left out of the conversation. But she's like, it's because they were such good men that they had all these wives. And that was the context of polygamy in any conversation we had about it in church or at home, until I graduated and actually started reading some stuff on it and realized that this was a few men with dozens of wives, kicking men out of the church, marrying teenagers.
Yeah, the 13-year-olds.
And marrying really young women, secret marriages that his wife didn't know about. And I think that then I was struggling with this, and I still had a lot of very Mormon friends, and I would ask them, I'm like, how do you come to terms with this? Mostly men. And they're like, you just have to have faith that it will work out and that you will be okay with it down the road. And I couldn't do that. I decided at some point that what they did was morally wrong. And the thing about Mormonism, the thing they teach you is that it is all or nothing. It is either 100% correct, it is the only real truth in the world, it is the whole world, or it is a farce. It is nothing. It is deception from the devil. And so when I looked at this one thing, and there was other stuff going on in my life too, but when I looked at this one thing and realized I couldn't come to terms with that, I couldn't rationalize that in any way, it was overnight. I was like, well, I guess the Mormon church isn't true. And if the Mormon church isn't true, then I guess there isn't a God, because they told me it was all or nothing. So I went from like devout Mormon to atheist in like a 3-month period. There are other things. Like I had a lot of issues with the way they treated gay marriage. And there were some other things going on, but that was the main thing. The one thing that I was like, I can't rationalize this. This is abuse. It is sexual abuse of women. And once I decided that I was done, it was actually it was a pretty easy break. We still have some issues in my family, and like I said, there's a range of activity there. But when I decided to leave, I didn't look back. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't worry, which was nice, because I think I had a lot of friends who didn't have such an ease of transition as I had.
Yeah, and with the polygamy thing, it's one of those where, like, there are scenarios where it makes sense. If you have a very high rate of mortality for men, say massive war, it would make sense. Except you look at history, that's never how it works, because more women tend to die during massive wars because the villages get burned down. And while the men are all running around trying to flee the army, the women are stuck at home dying. And so it never actually works out that way. And when it does happen in a large systemic way like that, it's always about power. And there's always the issue of surplus men and the way they get handled, the way the FLDS are doing it now, where
excommunicating young boys. Yeah. And they just basically are like, off with you. Like, they don't give them any resources or anything. They just kick them out.
Yeah, they're just didn't even educate them. It's just all of a sudden, you're 20. What's your crime? You're male. You're competition.
And that's, I think, the other, or one of the big issues that I had with it when I started really looking into polygamy and what it meant for the church is that the women, the way my mom explained it is the women were being taken care of and protected. But when you look at what actually was happening, is the women were considered blessings, and I say that in like a air quotes type way, blessings to the more righteous men. And I take issue with that as a woman, that in any that the God that I've been worshiping would look at me as like we bless this man with good crops and with sheep and with women, like we're all the same. We're all the same goddamn thing. Like, no, that's not. I can't come to terms with that. It just doesn't. There's something about that doesn't feel right. Like Joseph Smith and Brigham Young were so righteous that they got blessed with wives as if they were possessions.
Yeah.
And the only way they can keep doing that is if they kick basically children who have no understanding of the world and how things work, because the same community has kept them sheltered from it. Remove those people from that population.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing is abhorrent to me.
Well, and the other ages that get involved too end up just being so creepy. because it ends up being 40 and 50-year-old or even older men,
60,
70, marrying 13, 14-year-old girls.
Mm-hmm. And that was always my biggest issue whenever I conversed with somebody who was a woman who was a diehard Mormon. I was like, how do you deal with the fact that women are treated as such lessers? And it's like, well, women have their place. You know, there wouldn't be a church without women. I'm like, okay, there wouldn't be a human race without women either, but they still deserve to have equal rights. They're like, well, we don't necessarily believe that that's true. I was like, oh, okay, so we're just talking about totally different.
Oh yeah, no, I've
complete dichotomy, and
I've had that conversation with so many Mormon women where I'm like, it'll come up, and it's usually them who bring it up because they know where I stand. They're like, atheist, liberal, feminist, crazy person over there, and they'll be like, you don't understand that we're the real feminists. And I'm like, okay, explain that to me. And they're like, we're the real feminists because we understand how amazing the role of women is.
Oh my God, flashback to high school right there.
And how, because we are the people who truly respect women and what women do.
Yeah, they want to become the most womanly of women, which is mother, just caregiver, which is...
And since they respect that most, they're most feminist. And I'm like...
Feminism my is not what you think the word means.
Yeah, I think you're confused about what that is. I don't think there's anything wrong with the path you've taken. If that's the path that makes you happy to have kids, get married, do that, that's all great. Those are all great things. But I also think that you should have the option to take every other path available to you if you want to take that path, is the difference.
Without the constant fear of being ostracized from society. Because, I mean, if you do decide to get out, you're cut off.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's scary.
Yeah, it can be hard. And it shouldn't. And that's the other thing is that I know a lot of women, still know tons of people in church. I know a lot of women who are very happy with the path they've taken. I know a lot of women who are not, who struggle with it. And I think that there's this idea that it being hard is what makes it so important. And I'd be like, it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, you're always going to find hardship in whatever path you take. But if you find it hard all the time, maybe a different path would have been better for you. Yeah,
and some of the people I knew in college who were starting to settle down, they were finding future husbands, and they were excited to start families and stuff. If that didn't work out all according to plan, they felt like they failed. If they didn't end up with 5 kids, they had failed somehow, and they felt this like there wasn't any other choice in the matter, that they were either going to do it well or they were going to fail, and they failed. It was like, no, that's just a different way of living. There's nothing wrong with that.
I think that's the hardest part for me when I left, because I didn't even necessarily, I told you, I've never really wanted kids, and getting married was sort of always just kind of in the back of my mind, but I still subconsciously was on that trajectory of find a spouse, get married, start having kids, even though I didn't consciously want it. And I also felt as long as I was doing that or on that trajectory, going to church, not drinking coffee, then I was doing okay. Like, it didn't matter what else was going on because I was on the right path. And then when I left the church, and I really realized very consciously that I didn't want those things. I had left church. I didn't necessarily want to get married, which I ended up getting married, and I love it. It's great. But I didn't really want kids. Things like that. There was a moment of trying to orient myself with life. I'm like, how do you find a path that wasn't given to you at birth? That wasn't like, you come out of the womb and they set you on it and they're like, just keep walking straight and you'll be fine. And then at 22, you have to figure out how to make decisions. Mm-hmm. And that was probably the hardest part.
It's like reaching junior year of college when you realize that your chosen major isn't what you really want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're sitting there, you're like, oh crap, I've got 2 years of generals and I have no idea what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. With Mormonism, you think it's an eternal thing. You think you've made an eternal decision, that is
scary when you think about, eternity like that. It's like, oh man.
Yeah, but it was a good reason to always make the right decision, because it's not something that you could correct down the road. It was forever. You were stuck with that forever.
And ever and ever.
Well, one thing I've definitely found interesting while living in Idaho is comparing the way life is for a Mormon compared to an Adventist, because there's a lot of similarities between the two. They started around the same time. No drinking, no smoking, no drugs. Lifestyle very similar, except Adventists take it further. Not only is coffee bad, but
Adventists don't drink coffee either.
Coffee is starting to be okay. It's like gray area okay now.
It's like meat.
Meat is also a gray area. Pork and shellfish and all of that is completely forbidden. Adventists take all that to an extreme, but Mormons take the community to an extreme, and the family. Where Adventists, those are important things, but it's not all encompassing.
That is something I've always noticed, is that Mormons do program the shit out of their day and their week.
You even see the difference in just the way they settled. Both churches started in upstate New York, and Mormons all moved together as a community. And Adventists, they did that once, and they got to Michigan and started realizing it was just a bunch of infighting and political games, and they decided everybody needs to spread out. They were going to destroy themselves if they stayed together. Everybody needs to spread out, get as far away from each other as possible, spread the gospel, and not bicker.
Yeah, it sounds like some families I know.
And it's been highly successful, but what's crazy is there are significantly more Adventists than Mormons, but you don't hear about Adventists, you hear about Mormons.
I was going to say that surprises me. Maybe it's just the area I live in, but I would have thought there was a lot more Mormons.
They're concentrated. Mormons own a state.
And they own
almost
parts
two.
of a state.
Yeah.
But yeah, like where I grew up here in Boise and Idaho Falls, I assumed there were so many more Mormons than there actually are. Like, I think my school is probably 30 to 40% Mormon, but it felt like it was 60 or 70. I mean, it's just...
Mm-hmm. And if it's
because they were probably the biggest demographic, the biggest.
Everybody's always asking you what ward you're in, and do you do business with so and so, and it's like it's just nonstop. It's like it's always being pushed in your face.
And if your school,
Adventists don't do that.
No, Adventists have their own schools too. So
they weed them out.
Only half of Adventist children go to public schools. But if you've got 30 or 40% of your class is Mormon going to school, because Mormons have such big families, that probably means only 20% of the community is actually Mormon.
Which is closer to what Boise is, right? Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, is that our politics is largely Mormon.
Despite the fact that Mormons are only around 20% of the Idaho population.
They make up
I think
80%.
they're more than that. Mormons? I think that it was
Pentecostals and Catholics both have Mormons, and I think Baptists all have Mormons beat in Idaho as a whole. Mormons are heavily concentrated in the Snake River Plain.
Look that up, because I know it's been a few years, but I've looked up before. But I thought I'd read that it was like 35-40%. That we're almost as high as Utah.
Maybe,
but that was I mean, like I said, I might have been
Southern Idaho, yes. Boise, maybe. Idaho Falls, Pocatello,
and maybe it was
definitely.
just this area of Idaho I looked up. That might have been it, but
because there's more Mormons, concentrated Mormons in Idaho Falls, Pocatello area than there are here in the Treasure Valley. But if you include it all, it kind of averages out.
And if you get up 100 miles north and all the rest of the way up to the Canadian border, it's mostly Pentecostals and Baptists.
But our entire legislature it's like 80% Mormon.
Yeah,
they're all related,
and it was still 20%. 20% is a huge amount of Mormons.
Yeah,
That's still a lot of Mormons.
Yeah,
crazy amount.
Yeah,
all in one little area.
Yeah.
Oh, but
when we moved from here to Idaho Falls, my dad said that there was like a steakhouse on every corner. I got so excited because I loved meat at the time. I was like a big meat eater, so I'm like, oh man, there's gonna be like Texas Roadhouses all over the place. And then I got there and steak steak was not what I thought it was. It's like, no, that's
bummer.
That's a bummer. My dad was being sarcastic. Did not pick up on that.
Yeah. Well, one thing you said during your comedy thing was about as an ex-Mormon needing to make up for lost time. I've noticed that's pretty normal for ex-Mormons.
Yeah.
I party hardy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it depends on when and where you're at in life, because I've got some friends now who are about my age, and they got married in the temple and did all that, and then they left with their spouses, and they drink, but it's pretty moderate. They've got kids. They've got other stuff to worry about. I was in my early 20s when I left the church, and most of my friends have been drinking for half a decade at that point. So I got into it pretty hard. And that's one of the hard things is when you realize something that somebody told you your whole life is like the worst thing in the world, and then you try it and you're like, oh, that's not that bad. You can go a little overboard.
Yeah.
So I definitely had some hard drinking.
Chalk it up to life
years,
experience, right?
But like, it's a joke I tell my husband all the time. I'm like, you're helping me make up for lost time. But yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. There's a few ex-Mormon comics who they don't talk about it as much as I do in their comedy, where we've talked about it. We're like, yeah, like I started smoking in my mid-20s. Who starts smoking in their mid-20s? You usually start smoking when you're... Did you too?
23, 24.
Yeah, I was 25.
When I left that, when I left
25,
Adventism.
26. Well, maybe that's it, is that we were a little bit stunted because of our religious upbringing.
I didn't have my first drink until I was 23.
Yeah, I was 22 when I had my first drink. But most people start experimenting with that stuff in like mid-teens, mid to late teens.
Yeah,
12, yeah.
What? I can't handle this. I can't handle the idea of having a kid who's going to start drinking by the time they're 11.
All right. Well, I'd say we're about out of time.
All right.
Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, no,
Plug
this
yourself?
is great. It's fun. Like chatting with some like-minded people, and enjoyed your guys' company, and it was nice listening to you,
Wesley
on the other end.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
So do you want to pimp a Twitter, Facebook, anything like that?
No. I mean, I'm on Facebook, but
you don't have like an official comedian website or anything?
I don't, no. But you can Google me. Mary Cole. It's Merry.
And if
like
you're
Merry Christmas.
If you're in Boise, check out the comedy scene.
Yeah.
Liquid Laughs, people.
Check out Liquid Laughs. I'm there every couple of weeks at least. So, sweet. And if I'm not there, there's other people who are also hilarious.
Hilarious.
Many of whom are atheists.
Yes.
Yeah, comedians in this area are definitely of a sort.
Yes. Very.
They're great.
They are. Mostly.
Except for that one.
That one. We won't talk about him.
He's been on the show a few times.
I know. I gave him asthma treatment. Last time I gave him a whole bunch of I'm like, just don't die.
Yeah, everybody loves Mikey.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
And his dogs.
Yep.
His wee little chihuahuas.
All right.
Okay, I'll stop talking now.
Mary, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, remember, not all those who wander are lost, and we'll be back next week.
If you like the show, consider giving us some financial support. To make it really easy with one-time donations, or to support us on a per-episode, monthly, or even annual basis using PayPal or Patreon. Find out more at atheistnomads.com. Use the links on the right side of the page. $1 an episode is all we ask. Please, think of the kittens.